Kuf Gimel. Go back. One blot. So Choychen Yabel is b'migdash. A Yabel is a mum, is a blemish. So you can't do, this is talking about, you can't use the behema. We're talking about the behema that has a mum. So in the migdash, you could take off the yabeles with your hand, and in the migdash, avaloy medina, but not where you live. But in bekli, kan v'kan aser. If you use an instrument, then it's aser. Rashi says in the first wide line, even though when you do it by hand and you're taking off this blemish, misakenu, and you're cutting off in balachayim, I've told you that gozes is at semer. But even if you do it biyad, so it's kalayach yad. That's the normal way. That's not the normal way. El b'sakin with a knife. So therefore, in kain al shvus, so in the base of Mikdash we allow it. But the mikli kamikan also the av malacha have hoyel vein mishana v'kemay shayisa b'chol. Since you do it the same way you do it during the week, so therefore even the Mikdash you shouldn't do it b'kli. Feti Gemaru or Minu, I'll ask you a question. Kirkivu. We're talking about the Korban Pesach. Erev Pesach is on Shabbos, and you want to bring your Korban Pesach on Shabbos. So what do? So it says that you're allowed to rekivu v'avasa mechutz l'tchum. You're allowed to put it on your shoulders and carry it, and also you're allowed to even bring it mechutz l'tchum. And v'chatichas yevalta eina daicha. Oh, so it says Eina Docha. Just the opposite. You can't do this. Right? Rabbi Lezer says Dochen. But what do you see? The Tanakama says that Eina Dochen. And our Mishnah is the Tanakama. Rashi says it's Stam Astam. You cannot say our Mishnah at this point is Rabbi Lezer, so it's a Tanakama. So how does our Mishnah allow it biyad? Here it says Eina Dochen. So more answers. Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Yosef, Chanina. Chadam Ahava Havalacha. In other words, the Mishnah here and the Mishnah in Psachim is talking where the mum is still moist, right? So therefore, v'loy kasha kan biyad kan bekli. Our Mishnah, when it allows it, is biyad. The Mishnah in Psachim that says Eina Dochen is talking about where you're using a kli. Okay, Rashi says Hod Psachim bekeli. V'hachinami komar. Actually, our Mishnah at the end says exactly like the Mishnah in Psachim. And Rashi says, "Rabbi Lezer afilu b'kli shari." According to Rabbi Lezer, you're even allowed to use b'kli. Why? The sfirle, according to him, machshirei mitzvah doichen Shabbos. Even though you were able to do it erev yontiv, in other words, it's still, and you didn't do it, and it's Shabbos, it's docha. Kigoin bikramum machshirei karbinu. So therefore, according to Rabbi Lezer, even with a keli, you would be able to do it on Shabbos. So our the Mishnah there in Psachim is according to the Tanakama, and it works out because one's Bekeli, one's Biyad. Our Mishnah allows the Biyad. The Chadamar and the other one of Rabbi Lezer or Rabbi Yosef Chanina says Hava Biyad. Both Mishnahs, our Mishnah says Biyad, you're allowed to do it, and on the Mishnah in Psachim says Biyad, you can't do it like Kasha. Habalacha, Habiyavesha. If it's Lacha, then the Mishnah in Psachim says you cannot do it. But if it's dried out, the mum is already, the wart is dried out, then it is Mutter Biyad. Rashi says Masnisim Biyavesha Vafilahachi, but still, even though it's dried out, Bikeli Aser. In other words, what was the Rashi says the whole Isser is that you gozes like you gozes wool. But if it's all dried out, it's really not attached to the animal anymore. So it's really not gozes anymore. So therefore, biyad you're allowed to do it. So therefore, Rashi says, why can't we even do it with a keli, with a knife? So Rashi says, "Vafilahachi bikeli aser." Why? Mishum de misakenle. You are helping out the animal. You're making it fit for a carbon, and therefore the inyan melacha of it. It looks like you're doing a melacha. If the pesachim is belacha b'tervai biyad. Okay. So now you have one Amor is saying Habiyad, Habikeli, and one Amor is saying Habilach, Habiyavesha. Afraid the Gemara now, Ulamanda Amar Habiyad, Habikeli. My time, why didn't he answer the steer in the Mishnahs? My time, Lama Habilach, Habiyavesha. Because that Mora holds Amlach Yavesha would be Afila Bikeli Nami Shari. Even though Rashi explained the first that side, but this Amar would say if the mum is dried out, even with a keli, you could use a knife to take it off the animal. Why? My time once it's dried out, it'll just crumble. Right? So it's really not attached to the animal anymore. So therefore, he did not want to answer it that way. He answered it, Habiyad, Habikeli. According to the that he answered the stira in the Mishnah, my time, why didn't he answer Loyamar Habiyad, Habikeli? So it was Amalach. Because if he answered it that way, so you're going to say the Mishnah Psachim is talking about Akeli, but Bikeli Hotnan. It says right here in our Mishnah already in Eruvin, in Bikeli Kam V'Kan Aser. So why do you have to repeat it again in Psachim to tell you Bikeli is Ein Adocha if it already says here? So it must be that the reason, the difference in the Mishnahs are Belacha B'Yivesha. V'Idach. In other words, if our Mishnah in Eruvin already is talking about a Keli, the other Amorah said Psachim is also talking about Keli. Why do you have to say it a second time? Because Harik Tani Hasam, the reason why it repeats it in Psachim is Mishum de Kabayi Ifluger Rab Lezer Rabbanan. Here in Eruvin is just a Stam Mishnah. It doesn't tell you Rab Lezer's opinion. That's why it repeated it, the Keli, in other words, according to Tanakama Ein Adocha, even though he already said it here, but he repeated it there because of Rab Lezer's Shita. The idach. So now, why does it, according to the other, if it says already Bikeli here, why does he have to repeat it? Because Dimya, der Herkiva Vavasim Letchum Ketani. And that is the Rabbanan. Look at Rashi. The idach. In the middle, about 8 lines down. The other Amora, why didn't he explain the Mishnah Psachim that it's talking about a keli where it's moist? Because the imkain havale av melacha, right? And v'hasam hadeshvusu da'ira. If you're going to explain the Mishnah in Psachim that it's talking about a keli, that is an av melacha. But it doesn't fit into the sequence of the Mishnah Psachim. Because there it says, Dumi yoter kiva, loy mitzar elam rabbanan. In other words, when you carry an animal on your shoulders, it's only an isid rabbanan. D'chai, noise is atzmai. And also tchumim is nami rabbanan. Right? So if it says the first two cases talking about a Rabbanan case, the next case, when it says Chadichas Yevalta in Psachim, cannot be talking about a case of a Keli, of a Sakin where it's Lacha. Because that is an actual, not the Rabbanan Dekisser, that is an Amalacha. Right? So therefore it doesn't fit into that Mishnah. That's why that Amora did not want to explain the Stira Habiyad Habikeli. He answered Habalacha Biyavesha. So if Havasa b'chutz l'tchum and Harkava is Isad Rabbanan, how does it fit in? If you answer it's talking about a Keli, how does it fit in the sequence of the Mishnah? Because he holds Hirkiva the like Rab Nasan. He doesn't hold that when if you carry a live person, that it's not carrying a midaraisa. Because the Amar Chaynas Yatzma, we don't hold a Rab Nasan Shita. In other words, when you carry a live person, that is an Issa Deraisa. And Havasim Mechutz L'Tchum would go according to Rabbi Kiva, the Amar Tchumim, the Raisa. So therefore, the first two cases of the Raisa. So then, when it says Chatichas Yevaltai, and we're explaining that it's talking about a case where it's Lacha and Keli, a Sakin, which also is the Raisa. So it does fit in the sequence of that Mishnah. So therefore, there's two ways of answering the steers of the Mishnah here in Eruvin and the Mishnah in Psachim. So Moshe Rabbi Yosef. So now we're according to this Amora, we're explaining that it's an Issa Deraisa when you take off the Chaticha Shevalta. So Moshe Rabbi Yosef, it says in the Mishnah in Psachim, Omer Rabbi Lezer, when the Rabbanan, the Tanakama Rabbi Lezer are arguing in Machshirei Mitzvah, is it Doicha Shabbos or not? So Omer Rabbi Lezer, Kal V'chomer, Ma Shchita. The act of shchita, shehu mishum malacha. In other words, if you wouldn't do a shchita on a carbon, you would just do it for yourself. That is mamish oiver midaraisa on Shabbos, right? Still, we say for a carbon, we say doiches a Shabbos, se'ela shim shum shvus. All these cases that you want to bring your carbon pesach and you're bringing it on your shoulders and this, right? Or you're cutting off the abeles. It's only mishum shvus. Ain't it din sheitches a Shabbos for your carbon? So what do you see from here? Obvious that the whole Isser of Chatichas Yavaltai is a Shvus. So it can't be talking about a keli and lacha, because it wouldn't be a shvus. So you have to answer the way the other Amor answered, ha belacha ha b'yavesha, that the Mishnah Pesachim, that any dishit shvus, she'd be talking about yavesha. Elam Rabbi Yosef hava biyad. Both Mishnahs. Our Mishnah here in Eruvin that allows it is biyad, right? And the Mishnah in Pesachim that does not allow it is also biyad. So how do you allow it? So Gemara says v'shvus migdash b'migdash yitira. In other words, a shvus. In other words, that in the Mikdash is allowed, and you're doing it for the Beis HaMikdash, hitiru. But shvus the Mikdash b'Medina, a shvus that you're doing it for the Carbon Pesach, but you're doing it at your house, which is a Carbon Pesach, right? Because everybody brings their Carbon Pesach from home. So if the person wants to fix up his carbon at home, we don't allow him to cut off that yabeles at home. The only place you could cut off the yabeles, the mum, for the Carbon Pesach is only if you bring it to the Beis HaMikdash and you do the act there, but not at home. Okay. So now Yosef Abaya, so Rabbi Yosef answered, a shvus is only allowed only for a tzorech migdash, only in the Beis HaMikdash. Yosef Abaye become lo shmaita. So Abaye said over what Rabbi Yosef just said. So Esrei Rav Safra Abaye. In other words, so Rabbi said, Rabbi Yosef says a shvus of migdash in your home, you're not allowed to do it only in the Beis HaMikdash. I'll bring you a proof other way. Hayakir, it says in the Mishnah before, if a person is reading in a sefer al-askofa, he's reading in a scroll. So it's not like a sefer, but it's like a sefer Torah. And then what happened? All of a sudden, the sefer Torah rolled out of one part of the sefer Torah rolled out of his hand. So the Mishnah says there, Gola etzlo, you're allowed to al bizoyan of this sefer, which is kodesh, you're allowed to roll it back. But for the Gemara of Ahacha, the Shvos b'migdash, this sefer is it's not like something for the Beis HaMikdash, but it has kedusha, right? So it has kedusha. So it's the tzorech kedusha, like the tzorech migdash, and you are at home, you're allowed to roll it back. So we see that we allow an act to roll it back. So why don't we allow the yabeles too at home to take off the yabeles even in Medina at home?
What's the problem with it rolling it back if it doesn't touch? I thought we learned if it doesn't touch.
So it's a gzeira because it might fall off your hand, right?
I thought we said we could roll
if you look at Rashi, Goyla etzloi the kivendik the biyado, you're still holding on to one part of it. So afagav the ikishvus, even though there's a shvus, because they say dilma nafa kule rishus harabim vasel asuye. If you're allowed to roll it back, it might fall completely out of your hands, and you might come to take it back. So it's only a shvus, a drabanan dikigzera. And still, so say nami shvus the migdash karle shara kodesh or alma shvus the tzarech migdash huter af medina. It says gola etzloi. You could bring it back als bezoyin of the sefer, even though there's a gzeira of the rabbanon. So why not bechatichas yabelas too? Why can you take it? Why can you take it off at your home? So the Gemara answers, no. The reason why by the sefer you're allowed to do it, didn't we say that platform that you're standing on is a carmelis, and because the kiven the ikda biyadai, since you're still holding on to the Sefer Torah, I feel a shvus namileka. There's no even iser shvus because there's no iser deraisa. Then you might come to an iser deraisa if it falls completely off out of your hand and you bring it back from the Rosh Hashanah. You're not bringing it back into Rosh Hashanah. You're bringing it back into a carmelis. So there's not even an iser rabbanon. That's why we allow it. But if you're actually standing in a Rosh Hashanah and it fell into the Rishus HaRabim, and you're holding on to it, maybe you're not allowed to bring it back to you, because there's a Shavuos and Gazrinon. So there's no Rai from there. So Esvei. So we'll ask another question. Mishal Shlin is at Pesach l'tanur im chashecha. You're allowed to lower a carbon Pesach into your oven at nightfall. So normally on Shabbos we all know that when you have a cholent before Shabbos, you can't start cooking it right when Shabbos comes along, Because there's an isser if it's not cooked before Shabbos, shemiyachta b'kachalim. In other words, you see that it's not cooking well, and somebody wants to eat, even though you're planning to eat it on Shabbos morning, right? But somebody might want to taste it, so, it's not cooked. You might be chitu, you'll stir the coals. So it's a gzeira, shemiyachta b'kachalim, right? So here it says, mishal shalos ha-pesach, you're allowed to lower the carbon pesach l'tanur to roast it, because it's a mitzvah to eat the carbon pesach roasted, im chashecha. In other words, even though you're not doing the act of roasting, but once you lowered it in and you let go of it, what's going to happen? It's going to roast on its own. It's something for the carbon, but you're doing it in Medina, you're doing it at your home, and we allow you to lower it in. So why don't we make a gzeira? Because you're at home, you're not in the Beis HaMikdash, right? Because the whole procedure of the carbon pesach was, once you shechted your carbon pesach in the Beis HaMikdash, we learned, you go home. You take it home with you, and you roast it at home. So here you're roasting it at home, it's Medina, and we allow it. So why don't we make the gzeira? So Ishtik. So Abaye didn't know how to answer this question. So Kiyasa, the Kami to Rabbi Yosef. So now Abaye came to his Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef explained, even though it's L'Tzayrech Migdash, but if you're in the Medina, you're not allowed to do it. Amalei, so Abaye told Rabbi Yosef, Hacha Amali Rav Safra. Rav Safra asked me a good question from this price of Mishal Shos HaPesach. So Amalei, Rabbi Yosef says, my time like the Shanalei. Why don't you give him an obvious answer? That by Bnei Chabura's reason, by carbon Pesach, you're eating it with a group. If you're eating with a group, the whole gzeira of Shemiyachta b'Chalim is only if you're on your own. But since you have Bnei Chabura, they're going to remind you, Yachta b'Chalim. So that's why we allow it. So why didn't you give him that answer? Vabaya, why didn't he give that answer? Because he says, you're right. Zerizen Hain, that only is for Kahanim, Zerizen Hain, Amrina. For Kahanim, that are, we say they're Zaris, and we allow them to do things. But Bnei Chabura is Zerizen Hain, Loy Amrina. Bnei Chabura, which is every Jew. In Shul, all of a sudden you call somebody, come along, let's do it. Now, you don't know if they're Zaris or not, so they're not going to remind each other. Rashi explains very nicely. Rashi says, "Va'abaya," 5 lines of the Abayim, the Ishtak Savar, Kahanim's reason heim amrinen bekami duchte. We see it in Shas that a kohen is zaris. Why? The kimish nechus lavoda, a person that a kohen gets up in the morning, right? He knows he's going to the Beis Hamikdash. Be yeduish lamdu hilchas kodesh. He knows tomorrow morning he's up for the job. He's going to make sure to sit down in the kollel and learn all the halachas. So he's going to be zaris, but Bnei Chabura, the reason Hein Lo Yamrina and Shein Lach Adam Shein Pesach. There's every Jew has to do it, right? So you don't know if he's a Zaris or not. Rashi before the Havimina that Bnei Chabura. If you go back to one Rashi, the Rashi before said Bnei Chabura Hanimnim Ala Pesach Zerizin Hein. That was the Havimina. The Chola Oskim, according to Rabbi Yosef, the Chola Oskim Bekachim. When a person is going to be Osek in his carbon Pesach, they are Zerizin. And the Chachamim, they're also knowledgeable. Hilkach loy they won't come to stir the Gechalim. But now the Gemara answers that every Yukul, in other words, everybody makes the Carbon Pesach, and therefore we cannot trust that person for the Carbon Pesach.
Part of a group, but don't you just show up? In other words, if I'm part of a group, I don't have to do it.
No, but you can't just show up that night. You have to be from the Menuhin. You have to be part of a group. So you do sign up.
What do you have to do then?
Right, you have to show up, but they're all part of the roast. So now that you're sitting down, you don't want to come to the barbecue when it's dried out already. You show up early. You want to get a good fresh
You're
piece.
the leader. You're in charge.
Right, but everybody's there at the barbecue, right? They're all roasting. They're all together. So the Gemara asks the question, since they're all Zaris, they're going to remind the guy, don't be yachta. Just lower it in, we'll wait, right?
You know, everybody tells the chef what to do on the barbecue.
You tell your wife what to do? No? Okay. Rava Amar. Rava says now. Okay, let's go back. Rabbi now goes back now to the stira of our Mishnahs. In our Mishnah, right here, it says that you could cut off the Yabelas b'migdash. And what does it say in Psachim? Ein tochen. So Rabbi comes along and says, like Rashi says, Hava biyad. In other words, both Mishnahs are talking biyad, kidakamar. Keli would not be allowed, because according to Keli, it's a malacha. And even according to Rabbi Lezer, Rashi, according to this, even according to Rabbi Lezer, the holds machshiri mitzvah dochesh Shabbos, with a keli, he wouldn't allow it to do it because efshel asosa ber Shabbos. So therefore, Rava says our Mishnah that allows to cut off the Abeles is Rab Lezer. We didn't answer that because we thought Rab Lezer even allows a Keli, right? And our Mishnah says Keli Aser. Now Rava says no. Rab Lezer holds that Keli is really Aser because it's Av Melacha, and therefore even though Machshirei Mitzvah normally you're allowed to do it, but since here Efshel Asosa Me'erev Yantiv, you're not allowed to do it. So, but the Mishnah it says that you're allowed to take care of the Migdash, the Abeles in the Migdash is Rab Lezer, the Amma Machshirei Mitzvah Doichas HaShabbos. But Umode Rab Lezer, the Kama the Efshel Shnuyi Mashninan. But our Mishnah says, but a Keli it's Aser because you have to try not to do a Av Melacha. And a Keli, when you do it with a sakin, it's mamish misakein. It's like gozes as hatzemer, and therefore even Rabbi Lezer would not allow it, and he would only allow it biyad. So our Mishnah would be Rabbi Lezer. The Mishnah in Psakim is the Tanakama. Our Mishnah is Rabbi Lezer. So Mahi, where do you see now the Gemara says, the Rabbi Lezer says that you should try to make the Shinoi to do a less Isser, Isser not so Chamerdik? The Tanya, we learned the Brisa. Kayin should also buy Yabeles. Now, our Mishnah was talking about with the animal had the mum. Now we're talking a Kayin is in the Beis HaMikdash, he's ready to do his Avaita, all of a sudden he says, Oy Geval, I have a Yabeles on my hand, right? So what happens? So Chaveira, it says his friend should be Choit Cheloi B'Shinaf. His friend should cut it off for him, and not with his hand. He should do it with his teeth. So the Gemara says B'Shinaf en. It says you do it with your teeth. B'Keli Loi, and then it says Chaveira en. You should ask your fellow friend to do it for you. And iluy, but he himself should not do it, right? This is the brisa, right? Now Rashi, let's learn Rashi. Bishin of en, the shvusu. In other words, with your teeth is only a shvus. Bikeli loy. Filu bishin of chavera en. Even with the teeth, you should only let your friend do it. Viulai. Why? The chavera lemisak leishaper. Just like everybody make the expression, if a chaver is gonna, your friend is gonna, he's just gonna bite and run away. If you're gonna do it to yourself, you're gonna make sure that you're doing a good job, right? So therefore, the Mishnah says, let the friend do it because lemisak leishaper. He won't fix it so nicely, right? The pligi Rab Lezer Rabbanan benoitel tzipurn of without a koyin, a regular guy at home, and he wants to take off a yabela, so you can take it off with your nail, oy b'shinov. If a person does that, then that is Chil Shabbos. If a person himself does it at home, is Oyster Mishum Shvus. If you take it off with your teeth, it's only Oyster Mishum Shvus. So Rabbi Lezer says a Chiv Chatas, a person, a regular guy at home. The Chachamim say that it's awesome shum shvus. So ve'akim no hasam nechim chayiv Rab Lezer b'noit latzmai. When does Rab Lezer say that you're chayiv achatos, you're mechal Shabbos? Only if you did it for yourself. Aval chaverai, if you cut it off for your friend, divrei hakol potter. So now here we have this brisa. We're not sure who it is. So the Gemara says now mani. Who is this brisa? If it's the Rabbanon that hold normally machshirei mitzvah is loydachui, right? An av malacha. Over migdash we say kiven dam Rabbanon ba'alma mishum shvus. The whole iser. When you bite off a yabeles, we just learned in Rashi. Rashi says the Chachamim say it's only a iser shvus. So therefore, since it's a iser shvus, so for the Gemara, hachi malahu malachaveiroi. If by biting it off, according to Chachamim, why do you have to have your friend do it for you? In other words, even when you do it, it's only a shvus. So why does this Mishnah say that Chavera Chot Kalei B'Shinov? Must be, Elalaf, must be, it's Rab Lezer. According to Rab Lezer, if you're not in the Beis HaMikdash, you do it at home, you cut it off with your teeth, you will be Chayiv Chatos. So therefore, v'hacha, but here the koyin that's in the Beis HaMikdash, afal gav the machshirei mitzvah doichen Shabbos. Since even though normally Rabbi Lezer says is doichen Shabbos, so why do you need your friend to do it? Why don't you do it, right? And why do you do it with the shinov, with your teeth? But kama the efshel mishaninan. This Bryce is saying, Rabbi Lezer is saying, do make a change as much as possible to make the isser more kal. not so chomer. So you see in this brisa, Rabbi Lezer says, Kama de efshe mishaninan. Try to do that shinoi to do less of an isser. So therefore, our Mishnah too says when the behema has the yabeles, cut it off with your hand. Don't cut it off with a keli, because Rabbi Lezer says kama de efshir lishnuyim mishaninan. So that's the raya from here that Rabbi Lezer does say that. So Gemara says no, lo ilam rabbana. Really, I could say this brisa is rabbana. So therefore, we have no rayid. Rabbi Lezer holds kama de'efshel l'shenuyim mishanina, because this brisa that talks about the koyin that has the yabeles is the rabbanan. So what do we ask the question? We ask the question: if it's rabbanan, it's only a shvus. Why do you have to have your friend take it off? You take it off yourself, because v'i also b'krisa yachanami. If it's on your tummy where you could get at it, right? It's on your stomach. So therefore, you're right. You'll do it on your own. But Hakam Hayaskinon, this Bryce is talking, where you got this yabeles on your back or on your elbow, right? How many people could kiss their elbows, right? So the guy can't take it off with his tooth. He needs his friend because it's not practical to do it. That's why it says you need your friend.
Doesn't mention wife.
So therefore, there's no raya. There's no raya that Rabbi Lezer holds kama de efshel l'shenuyim mishanilam from this brisa. Where it says no. If you're going to say that this brisa is talking according to Rabbanan, for the Gemara, be Rabbanan nishkalu nalei biyad. Why does this brisa say that if your friend's already taking it off of you, why are you taking it off with his tooth, with his teeth? Why didn't his friend just take it off biyad?
Makes more sense,
right? According to Vitif showed, if the Bryce, what do you gain by saying Yad and Shinov? Because once you say Yad, you'll be able to prove, Vitif showed, you'll be able to prove to Rabbi Lezer. The Omer Rabbi Lezer, Machlokas b'Yad. The whole Machlokas between Rabbi Lezer and Rabbanan in Machshiri Mitzvahs b'Yad. Avol b'Kli Divri Hakol Chayiv. So if you say that this brisa is Rabbanan, why are you talking about your friend taking it off with his teeth? Let him take it off with the hand. So it must be, since we mentioned teeth, must be there's another message here, that it's Rabbi Lezer, it's not Rabbanan, because if it's according to Rabbanan, let it say yad and not teeth. So for the Gemara now, so you're going to say, this brisa of koyin she'osel b'yabeles is Rabbi Lezer, and therefore there's a raya kama de'efshel l'shaninon, but Rabbi Lezer nami l'shkul nila b'yad. Why can't, according to Rabbi Lezer, if you're making a shinoi, instead of doing it with a keli, you're doing it b'yad. So that's a good shinoi. So why don't you have the same question? Mor says, no. Hi, mai. If we say this brisa, this top brisa on Amit base, right? The top brisa on the first line is Rabbi Lezer. The reason why it says with the teeth, because hainid gaziyad atakeli. According to Rabbi Lezer, if you do it at home, it's an av malacha. Right? According to Rabbi Lezer, right? If you do it b'shinov and it's not l'tzarech migdash, it's a chayiv chatos. So therefore, even though here you're in the base of migdash, he's geizi yadot tekeli. That's why the Mishnah the Bryce had to say teeth. Eli Rabbanan. But if you're going to say that this Bryce is Rabbanan, and according to Rabbanan, even biyad it's a shvus, right? At home. So if it's Rabbanan, Nishkalu Nilei Biyad, why did the Brisa have to say Shino? Must be that this Brisa is Rabbi Lezer. And we know the concept of Kamot Efsher Lishanuya Mishaninon. So therefore Rava explained that our Mishnah here in Eruvin that says that you're allowed to cut off the yabeles off the animal Biyad and not Bekeli is Rabbi Lezer, because Bekeli Kamot Efsher Lishanuya Mishanina Misuloi Midi. And don't talk about it anymore. Okay, Mishnah. Koyain shalaka betzba. Now you have a koyain that didn't get a yabeles, but he got a wound. It's not a mum. He just got a wound on his finger. He bruised. So what does he do now? So he wants to do avoda. Now we'll see in the Gemara that it's not on his right hand; it's on his left hand, right? So karach of gemi, put like a band-aid made out of gemi b'migdash. Avaloi b'medina. But if you're at home, you can't do it. But if you want to really attach this band-aid to squeeze out all that blood and the pus out of it, that's kan v'kan aser. Even in the Beis HaMikdash, it's aser, because that's mamish. Rashi says chovel, right? Kan v'kan aser she'ein zeh tzorech avoda v'oy dahav lechovel v'av malacha lemishtra legabei.
You don't,
Now,
you
let's-
don't need to do that for the service, so there's no
Right,
reason
but
to do it.
let's learn the first Rashi. Kol gemi v'afal pisha gemi merapes amake. Even though it's a band, our band, they just put it on just to support. In other words, you shouldn't bruise it again. But this gemi had a certain ointment on it that it's meraped amake. But hoyel v'hashtemi etzorach avoidi lav urach ara. It's not so nice that when you in the base of Migdash, all of a sudden you have a little wound. It's not nice, so you want to cover it up. Still, mechasais begemi, even though you're getting refuah out of it, but still, that's not your intention. Your whole intention to put the gemi on it is that they should look nice when you're doing the avodah.
It says the reed actually has curative properties itself.
In the gemi, it's made out of grass.
You have the grass
The
itself.
reed has that. Okay, right. So the Gemara says now, Rabbi Yehuda Brei Rabbi Chia lo shanu ela gemi. In other words, aval tilzel cotton, but if you put like a little belt on it, right, that is a problem of yiter begadim. In other words, a kohen, when he doesn't invite it, is allowed to have a certain amount of begadim, right, of the kohen hedyot. So by putting on this tilzel, a little belt, that will be yiter begadim. For Rabbi Yochanan, yiter begadim. Yiter begadim is only where the big day kohen is supposed to be. But on the finger, have a shleim makim begadim, have yiter begadim. If you have that little band-aid on, that's not yiter begadim. Now the Gemara says, like I just explained before, how do you put on this band-aid? It's a chatzitza.
Right.
So Gemara answers, it's talking bismile. It's on the left hand. Inami biyamin. But it could be even on your right hand, but it means shalai b'makayim avoda. Means in other words, not on this part, on the palm of your hand, it's on the top, right? So that is not part of the avoda, so that's not a chatzitza. Upligi de Rava. Now the Gemara says that this statement of Rabbi Yochanan just said that shalai b'makim begadim, there's no yitur begadim. That will argue on Rava. The Amar Rava and Rav Chizda. Rava said in the name of Rav Chizda that b'makim begadim, if you're putting something else where normally the beged koyin, the big dekuna is afilu nima achas, even though it doesn't have a shear, a little thread, that is chotzetes. Shaloi b'makim begadim. But if you're putting a extra beged, shaloi b'makim begadim, if it's shalosh al shalosh, if that beged's measurement is 3 etzbos by 3 etzbos, then chotzetes. That would be actually chotzetes here would mean it's yitur begadim, it's extra. Pachas mishalosh al shalosh, ain't a chotzetes. So, in other words, our statement of Rabbi Yochanan that says if shaloi b'makim begadim, when you put this belt, in other words, it's not yitur begadim, argues on Rava. So where it says you're right. I Rabbi Yochanan vade pligi. In other words, Rabbi Yochanan does argue with Rava's statement because he says it's not Yitur Begadim. And according to Rava, the tziltzal would be Yitur Begadim. But how about Ad Rabbi Yehuda, Berei de Rab Chia, Minei Pligi? Does Rava argue with Rabbi Yehuda Rab Chia? He started that tziltzal cotton is yidur, shani tziltzal cotton the chashiv. Even though it does not have a shear, but still it's chashiv when you put a little belt and it's very pretty. So therefore it's chashiv, and therefore he might agree with Rava. Rabbi Yehuda Bar Rabbi Chia. Lishnach Rina. Some people learn it a little differently here. Amrle Rabbi Yehuda Bar Rabbi Chia loishanu elegemi. Avot tziltzal cotton, when you put a little belt, it's chotzeitz. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, this is the difference. Le amru chatzitza bepachas mishalosh al shalosh. In other words, when it's a chatzitza, when it doesn't have that measurement of 3 etzbos by 3 etzbos, ella b'makim begadim. In other words, aval shloi b'makim begadim, then shalosh, only if you have shalosh al shalosh chatzetzes, but pachas mishalosh einay chatzetzes. And according to this, behind the Rava and Rabbi Chizda. So this statement, Rabbi Yochanan, is not arguing with Rava and Rabbi Chizda, is exactly the same then. So lema pligi, Rabbi Yehuda Brei Rabbi Chia. So Gemara answers again, shani tziltzul katan the chashiv. Ul Rabbi Yochanan adash minan gemi. According to Rabbi Yochanan, why did the Mishnah have to say gemi? Lashminan tziltzul cotton. Why didn't he say the Mishnah karach olav even a tziltzul cotton according to Rabbi Yochanan? Right? Because it's shalai b'makim begadim. So Gemara says milsagav urcha kamashbalan. The reason why the Mishnah says here gemi, it was like what Mark said, the gemi masi. It's automatic. In other words, a tziltzul does not heal. Right? It doesn't have anything to heal. But a gemi, when you take a piece of grass, a piece of reed, it has something in it that will heal. So I might think that on Shabbos you shouldn't do it because it's a refuah. Therefore, Kamashla in the Mishnah is that you're allowed to do it.
Right.